My God, AI has now gone back into my childhood and conquered the game that plagued me for years. The marble twisty box thing. As this creator notes, if you want evidence that there's evil people in the world, you can now add a Sora watermark to some videos that are not Sora related. Yeah, like real videos can now look like they're AI, so nobody will know anything about what's real or what's not. Well, in the pre-drone AI days, stars used to pretty much stay where they were when you look up, but I got a feeling with how many drones are going to be in our future, this is what the sky is soon going to look like. 16,000 drones all acting in a swarm, creating a beautiful falling tree over China's skies. Drone shows are seriously next level. You know what else is next level? Google Maps just got a crazy upgrade. A lot of people kind of sleeping on it. Like they pointed out, wow, now Gemini 3.0 is connected to Google Maps. But that totally changes one of the most crazy data sets the world has. No, seriously, think about the UI being connected to Google Maps and you use it like ChatGPT where you have a conversation, but it's referencing all of that street view data, all of that people and place data, all of those facts about restaurants, businesses, residential areas, and how commerce and cars move around. It's interesting because it's not like a huge new model, but the same model, one of the top foundational models with this data set, with its ability to control the interactivity, it's a special thing. We should talk about it. BCI, brain-computer interfaces, are now taking on their own ability to help people who are paralyzed feel objects through another person's hand. This is something I hadn't thought about being in my future before, but yeah, maybe my hand will feel what someone else's hand is feeling once all of us get connected to this massive Borg-like thing. Okay, so get this change. Uber, which I always thought was a company that was going to eventually cut out the drivers, and that was the whole plan, is now taking those same people and thinking, what else can they do besides driving? So this kind of is a twist, but Uber is now hoping that all those people that were driving cars and they're about to be replaced will go give them data for other AI tasks. Got some thoughts on what that means for the future that I didn't have before today. Anthropic Research, one of my favorite places to get new news from, is preparing for AI's economic impact. This is exploring policy responses, and there's a whole bunch of different things that they suggest to make the world better when AI starts to take over that we'll go through. And I'm not saying you can't pick it apart, but on the other hand, at least they're laying out a plan. It's fallible, but that means it's something to build off of. We're going to talk about the hidden math that fixes AI's blind spots, some new research showing how immune cells rewire, repair, and fix our brains as we sleep. I'm definitely starting to prioritize sleep more than I used to. Scientists can use AI to detect ADHD through visual rhythms. Groundbreaking study. NVIDIA Research launched an efficient part-level 3D object generation via dual volume packing paper, but nothing quite explains it as much as this demo. Look, the pillow and the letters fall right into place. Kali Jagordev has some thoughts about the photocopy problem, why AI can't replace the originals in automated content, risks erasing nuance, originality, and the voices that move us. Singularity Hub points out that today's humanoid robots look remarkable, but yet there's a big design flaw holding them back. And it goes beyond brains. It's about robots desperately needing smarter bodies. And we'll look at some thoughts from Salvatore Raelli about why competitive AI leads to deception. We're deep diving inside the race to the bottom. First, why don't you race to the bottom of this video, go to the comment section, and hit the hype button. You'll have to swipe right if you're on mobile, otherwise you might not see it. But this hype button totally helps smaller channels like mine. That's disproportionately helpful, so means more than a comment or a share or any of those normal things. So if you wouldn't mind giving me one of your hypes, I would appreciate it. You only get 3 per week. All right, first let's check in on Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, sitting at 95%. Any updates? Looks like 1. Alan's response to a new definition as AGI expert. What do we got here? Oh, look at this. Where will AGI be born? This is the predictions from 2025. So if you're looking in the US, it looks like they think Google, OpenAI, then XAI in that order, with Anthropic, Meta, Microsoft. Dude, that's exactly the order I would put them in. And then I really don't know about China's market in the same way, but Baidu, I mean, I know Baidu and Tencent. Now, I haven't even heard of the one in second place, but yeah, it could be. I'll trust him if this one's accurate. Let's assume that one is. Okay, so Alan's response to a new definition of AGI is expert. A new paper has been released. What definition of AGI paper? What do we got here? Okay, so they're breaking it down into these categories. Okay, so there is some insane authors on here. Joshua Bengio, we all know him. Max Tegmark, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. They proposed the first rigorous, measurable definition of artificial general intelligence. The authors define AGI as any system that matches or surpasses the, quote, cognitive versatility and proficiency of a well-educated adult. We've got to be getting close to that. I wonder if it has to be embodied like Alan's conservative countdown, but let's see. So they use the Cattle-Horn-Carroll model of human cognition, the gold standard in psychology, to break general intelligence into 10 domains: reasoning, memory, perception, language, math, and more. You can see that right here. And here is where the current models seem to be ranking. Interesting. So in a nutshell, GPT-4 is about 27% of the way to AGI. GPT-5 is about 58%. Wow, that's quite the jump from 4 to 5. Today's models excel in knowledge-heavy tasks, but remain weak in long-term memory and cognitive control. That is the mental glue that ties understanding together. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, AGI should be a constellation of abilities as measured here. You know what? We needed a good AGI definition just to get us all on the same page about something. And look at this graph. Last year, now, next year. Yep, look at that jump. Holy crap. All right, tell me you've played this game before. I don't know exactly what it's called. Maybe the Marble Labyrinth or something. I had one of these as a kid. I would like sit there and dial it, but there's something about just the mechanics of the board and my speed and ability to adjust. I could almost never win this game. I played it so many more hours than probably the average person, and I only won it once in a while. It was very hard. So to see AI do this to me unlocked some crazy core memories. But yeah, look at that. It's got the camera vision above it. It's been trained on the data set. It's figured out how precisely move that thing, and it's just a good visual example of how impressive these things can be when they're brought into three-dimensional world problems. Just so you know, there is a Sora watermark app out there that adds the watermark to real videos just to throw people off. Truly an evil project, but just know that it exists. So now we really don't know. Like, you might see something and say, gosh, that's so real. I can't believe that's generated by Sora. It might not actually have been. Might actually be real. Yeah, as this commenter Christopher says, yeah, that's crazy. We're actually more cooked than ever. And here we go. Just keep going. Speak the truth, brother. Have you ever wondered what 16,000 drones all swarming above your house would look like? Well, here's a preview. 16,000 of them did just that in China. Crazy to think about this whole thing. And even the video that we're watching is just like another drone looking at all the other drones. Think there's gonna be so many drones in our future. Hopefully, they're just always doing pretty things and giving us more stars to look at. But they could be used for other things, you can imagine. All right, so let me break this down. Google Maps, we've all used it before, totally integrated into so many aspects of the world. One of the most popular tools that has ever been built on the internet, and so much has been built on top of it. They have added what they call, quote, grounding for artificial intelligence. So that's the Gemini API, meaning Gemini's most powerful models can now be connected into all of those dev tools in that very powerful and unique data set that they have, letting developers connect AI responses directly into live maps. So routes, imagery, places, this is all crazy stuff that couldn't have been manipulated or questioned before now. And even though it's a large language model that's powering it, the Gemini model is foundational. It's becoming more multimodal every generation. I don't know if I would say that it has spatial awareness, but it kind of does, right? Like, you can look at a photo and analyze it, and it can analyze it for north, south, east, west. It can analyze it for whether you're in street view. It can think about the two connected. In some way, the tokens, the visual systems are all just coming together. And even if behind the scenes it's a little compartmentalized, it feels so much different. This is the planet's digital twin. Like, it now knows something about the distance between everything, what's at what elevation, where cars move around when they're driving places. This is stuff that when you query ChatGPT 5 through the app, it's not able to pull and think about in the same way. And this connection will probably redefine how especially the Google apps think spatially. And it's sort of a moat that I really don't see Anthropic or OpenAI getting access to as easily. And obviously, there are other systems out there, but Google Maps is, it's just the leader.
Ask me for some suggestions.
Yeah, I hear they have really good barbecue. Can you make some suggestions?
Please wait while I get that information. Here are the top 3 best barbecue restaurants in Houston, Texas. Pinkerton's Barbecue. This spot offers classic Texas-style brisket and ribs in a cozy setting with a full
And
bar
can you
and
tell
patio.
me what the vibe at the pit room is like?
I'll use grounding with Google Maps for that request. The pit room has a rustic casual vibe, offering Central Texas-style barbecue in a relaxed setting with a patio. It is known for its barbecue brisket and pork ribs.
That
and
sounds
it's a
really
good
cool. Are they?
So that is the machine jumping into the location, then looking at all the photos that have been uploaded to get the vibe. You know what I mean? They could probably tell you stuff that wouldn't be listed, like how many seats there are or if it's busy or not, because it could look at the metadata on all the photos, see what time they were taken, what kind of people go there, all sorts of stuff that you've never really had access to with an AI before. So there's now a man, his name is Keith Thomas. He's in his 40s and he's a quadriplegic. So he's paralyzed in all 4 limbs. And he has received a brain implant system that lets him control someone else's hand and feel through it. So essentially using the other person's hand as an extension of his own. So the way this works, his brain implant in the motory and sensory cortex of his brain records his intention to do something like grasp. That command is then sent to the partner's hand, who wears electrodes and force sensors. And when that hand touches an object, the force touch data is sent back via a stimulation connection so that he feels the pressure in his own brain. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments if that is something you thought could even have been possible in 2025 or not. And if you're thinking, oh, maybe it's just like all hype, it doesn't really work. In the trials, he was blindfolded and he could distinguish an object's firmness, and he could have cooperative tasks like pouring water together. The researchers reported a pretty high success rate in doing all these things. So the system doesn't just restore some lost movement, it reestablishes sensation and shared agency through another person's body. Like, what? You think we'll be in our partner's bodies in the future? Like the boundary between body and another body is now being renegotiated with this kind of technology. And it just gives me a hint into just how wild the next 100 years, 50 years, 20 years are going to be. Okay, so let me talk about this. Maybe you guys saw this coming. I kind of feel like this is something that was more obvious, and I'm just like one of the last to notice it. But I was surprised when Uber updated their app, allowing the drivers to do other tasks, which would help train artificial intelligence. So I knew Uber was investing in self-driving, and it only makes sense that you'd wait for cars to be self-driving and then remove the most expensive part of their business model, right? People will be thrown out. But I never expected them to say, oh, for all the drivers, by the way, we need some video footage of laundry. You need to mail them a headset one day and say, do these tasks around the house and we'll collect that data. That's part of the business model that I didn't see it going in. And now I can see why not. They have, maybe not millions, but hundreds of thousands of drivers across the entire US. They're smart human beings who can go collect certain types of data for them. They all have an app and a way to pay them built into the system. Maybe they'll drive places, take photos of things. Maybe they'll get special sensory inputs. Maybe they'll do all sorts of things that would be outside the realm of the kind of data that we get from social media networks and easily available through Reddit and things like that. So yeah, Uber has now taken that first step. And I don't know, is that a job you guys want to do? Want to go give data to AI? Because something as a human we're all pretty much qualified to do. All right, so Anthropic has this new paper out that's like new research. It's exploring how governments might prepare for AI's massive economic shifts. I really found this fascinating. So as AI systems begin to handle entire tasks independently rather than just collaborating with humans, the world will change. And if you believe that's coming, which I do, then these are some outlines for policies that would at least give us some guidance to build off of, right? And it kind of ranks them like there's mild, moderate, or even severe disruption. So you can kind of, you might say like, oh, there'll be a little bit of that, but it's not going to be a big deal. So there's mild recommendations. Or if it really goes exponentially fast and throws everybody off, there's all sorts of ideas in here, like upskilling, grants where the government pays money to people to get new skills. There's tax reforms for how, companies that replace everybody with AI could be taxed. There's different retraining systems that the government could kind of redo the way education works. There's faster permitting for AI infrastructure. There's automation, taxes that companies might end up paying, and sovereign wealth funds tied to AI revenue in the most extreme cases. So let's just run through a few of these. I mean, we're talking about reshaping labor markets. Just to throw a couple in here. So investing in upskilling through workforce training grants. They suggest $10,000 per year in the US directly to employers who create formal training positions with structured training programs. Closing corporate tax loopholes. This is one of the more interesting things I've thought about is AI really could probably tax every individual correctly if it had the right data. It'd be amazing how different the tax system would be. Probably for better, because I feel like the non-transparency is not helping the average person, but it's helping the super rich. So yeah, closing corporate tax loopholes would make a lot of sense. So there could be trade adjustment assistance for AI displacement, basically being like you got displaced by AI, it came faster than you expected. As a human, it might take a little while for you to get the new skills that you need, but as long as we patch over that sort of temporary time while you're being upgraded with skills, then you can get some kind of an income. So basically just kind of getting paid to go to school as long as it's about learning the AI automation you need for the next role in sort of a similar position company that was displaced. So they're suggesting 700 million annually going to stuff like that. There could be taxes on computer or token generations. Basically, look, you're using all this intelligence for different reasons. Just pay a tax on it. Intelligence maybe is like the new income tax. Like there's an intelligence tax. Creating a national sovereign wealth fund with stakes in AI. This one kind of makes sense to me. I mean, it seems like if you were born, I'm in the US, so let's assume it's here, but it could be anywhere. But yeah, you're born in the country and the country is upgrading with AI everywhere, and there's like these massive economic returns that are just super outsized. Like, why not give some of that upside to all of the people? It just helps bring us all to a place where we're growing together, and it's not that different from parents who set up, early investments for their kids. Let's just kind of make it broader and make it for all people. New revenue structure to account for AI's growing share of the economy. Next up, let's talk about the math that cures AI blindness. So hidden math fixes AI's blind spots. So this article written by Jose Crespo argues that modern AI still relies on outdated 19th century calculus, which uses what he calls fake infinitesimals, right? I think it's a way to think about, getting closer and closer and closer to something. And they don't align with how computers accurately process numbers. If you think about something like gradient descent, you think about something like back propagation, you're using all of this calculus to try to go back and adjust the weights. But our current math assumes smooth, continuous functions, but machines work in discrete steps. They use floating point approximations, and they create blind spots because of that. Okay, so I know that seems kind of technical, but basically if you try to smooth out all this stuff and it's really not smooth, you just end up creating weird adjustments that are incorrect. And in that mathematics is where you get some of these blind spots for real structures, real shapes, and that's why maybe AI is missing some of the understanding of real world problems. So, now sadly, this article doesn't exactly suggest what is better than infinitesimal limits, but it calls out something called curvature numbers. This is a place where if you're smart enough, you can take over. We need something that better represents discrete representations, finite precision, and then you'll get the shape curvature numbers that you need. But yeah, maybe this is an area of research, something to think about. This alternative view means that you might get optimizers that understand the shape of the problem more reliably in the sense of contours, curvature, numerical holes in the floating point grid system. So Ahmad, when we did our interview with him, talked about it's like everything's flows, right? I think about a river and then you divide it into 2, 4, 8, 16, a million. The rivers, like the different streams are like flowing in and out of each other. That's kind of what's happening when you make a decision, right? Like when you try to ask for something in the front end, you type something into ChatGPT, and then at the back end, you get some kind of an answer. It's going through this more and more complex thing. And the more complex you get it, the more it seems to understand reality. So if we can shift away from pure continuous infinitesimal calculus and towards something like a discrete geometry, some kind of finite precision calculus, something with curvature-based derivatives, yeah, we might get a fully formulated standard that can make machine learning blast off. He even says our optimization algorithms are vulnerable fossils from the 19th century. Can you believe we're building all this stuff on vulnerable fossils? We need curvature numbers, but we're using limits. All right, switching topics over to sleep. I'm sort of fascinated with it. Turns out immune cells rewire, repair our brains as we sleep. The single most interesting insight from this article is that the brain immune maintenance isn't really passive when we're sleeping. I used to think that it kind of turned off to like repair, and that's sort of true, but it's way more dynamic than this, we found out now. And it's also mediated by a literal switch. It's this neuroepinephrine level, and it modulates whether neural gardening, these like gardener cells, these microglia cells, actually go out and start doing things, if they're active or they're suppressed. And that's fascinating because it reframes sleep as an active maintenance window, not just downtime. So if you don't go to sleep, you're cutting short the brain's built-in repair and maintenance system. And you might sort of know about that, but here's what's going on. Your microglia cells, your hunters, your cleaners, they are constantly in an off position. They are suppressed because you're awake. And when they are active, when you're asleep, they can go out and prune and change. They're essentially like the gardeners of your neural network, of your brain. This is part of why sleeping matters so much for thinking and long-term health. The microglia can roam, they can prune unused synapses. So maintaining the brain wiring and networks couldn't be more important. And if you're not fully asleep, those systems are not turning on. Quality sleep is critical for brain health and plasticity. Disturbances at night might be linked to neurodegenerative diseases because of this. All right, next up, did you know AI can detect ADHD through visual rhythms? All right, so scientists have discovered that adults with ADHD show unique visual rhythms when processing information. This is something humans haven't been able to notice or diagnose before, but artificial intelligence, visual reasoning systems, they can see the tiny timing differences in how they perceive visual details. And using random temporal sampling, researchers have found that these patterns are so distinct that AI can now identify ADHD with over 90% accuracy. Guess what else they can tell? Through the AI system, looking at your eye, they can tell if you're taking stimulant medications. You think you're on Adderall and it's a secret? Nope, not to AI. The study suggests that ADHD might arise from a single consistent difference in how the brain manages perceptual timing, which is another lead to finding a solution to it. That's pretty wild. I always thought ADHD was like this messy spectrum of unrelated symptoms, but if there's a unified brain rhythm issue, that could transform how we diagnose and understand ADHD. All right, so let's look at some new research coming out of NVIDIA. You can upload a single image like this kind of guy made of toast here, and you can get from it many different shapes, right? Like it could be one mesh as a 3D object. What you're doing is turning this 2D object into a 3D object, or it can be in pieces. And that matters because how the bread moves around should act the way we expect. Like the shoes and legs should move in a way that the bread doesn't, the eyes should move. So it can figure out the different component parts because it's learned about parts from other models. So here you can see it did. It caught the eye, it caught the bread part, it caught the legs and arms. But if it's a truck, it should find the wheels turn, but not this part. Like the engine doesn't turn, the window doesn't turn, the wheels turn. If it's a box, it should know that it opens the way a box would really realistically open. It needs two parts. And here you can see we can take different objects like this 2D image of a bucket, and it can see the pieces that would be separated. For the chair here, you can see the chair components. And this is pretty much like how IKEA would ship these components, right? It would take all of these, put them in a box, and then you would assemble it at home. Here we have this bus. We can go ahead and look at the different components that it found, and it knew that there'd sort of be a main body, stuff on the top and bottom, because in the wind, these things would act differently. When moving, these things would act differently. So yeah, this is NVIDIA's Part Packer. It is a new AI-powered system that automatically decomposes 3D models into manufacturable parts, packs them efficiently for production, it merges computational geometry and generative design to simplify complex object creation automation. That is a task that used to take expert engineers. And what I'm kind of imagining about this is you take a place like IKEA, they have to pack everything for the general public, but maybe now we could have facilities in the future. Maybe they're 3D printing shops, or maybe they're kind of welding shops, or sort of AI-driven manufacturing hubs. And even if it's a one-off, like a completely unique chair, there's not another one in the world, an AI system like this could build the components and pack it properly to ship it to you. So we wouldn't have to have so much generic stuff in the world. But it would also be useful for all sorts of things that need to be taken into components. Or maybe, the wheels on this thing were made in China, and this wooden part is made in India, and this part is made out of some other kind of material that's only in one place or has one machine that puts it together. So it's kind of the beginning of how I could see like all logistical systems coming together in a new way. All right, next up, let's jump to some opinions. Over here, we have the photocopy problem. Kali Jagorev is talking about how AI cannot replace the originals and how automated content risks erasing nuance, originality, and the voices that move us. So for her, AI has completely ruined the word crucial. Not everything can be that crucial. I actually feel the same way. Like I would see like Fox News or like news alerts all the time. They're like breaking news alert, and then it would just be something kind of like gossipy, and just for year after year I'd see like every news station was always like giving some kind of an alert, and I'm like, wait, what, didn't alert mean something that was like really pretty unusual that we needed to be alerted to, not just 4 times every piece of news? But yeah, delve, crucial. There's definitely certain words now that have sort of lost their punch, and I think LLMs are contributing to that. But in a nutshell, this article writes that as AI-generated writing floods the internet, genuine human expression risks becoming lost amid uniform machine-made prose. So she uses Virginia Woolf to symbolize what's disappearing, and that's the messy, the emotional, the observational process that gives art its humanity. And this piece warns that when creativity becomes automated, culture becomes essentially a photocopy, technically perfect, but spiritually flat. And really, if you think about it, what she's arguing is that originality isn't about new ideas. And that's kind of surprising to me, because I would have thought, yeah, even if a machine put together 2 really novel ideas and came up with something that's never been made before, I would call that originality. But she says it's more about the living consciousness behind them, the natural biological mistakes that are built into creativity when humans do it. And when AI mimics creativity, it replicates form without experience. And so for society, this means that preserving human-made art isn't nostalgia, it's cultural survival. Let me know your thoughts on that. And now we'll talk about some more imperfections, this time in the humanoid robot sphere. They might look remarkable, but there's a design flaw holding them back. According to this Singularity Hub article, beyond the brains, robots desperately need smarter bodies. So of course, humanoid robots might dazzle in demos, but this article suggests that their real limiter isn't the smarts, it's the body design. So most are built around a central AI brain commanding a rigid frame with too few or too stiff of joints. That makes motion power hungry and clumsy compared to animals and humans who benefit from the kind of mechanical intelligence that comes with biology. So this is kind of an interesting thought, so stay with me here. But mechanical intelligence is nature's natural way of solving problems through evolution that created the mechanics that go along with the brain. So we have compliant spines, we have springy tendons, we have touch-rich skin that passively adapts to the world. We've been through a kind of a different system, whereas heavier actuators, bigger batteries, more computation, we're getting there with these machines, but you can see there's a sort of bitter behavior in them. And the fix isn't in abandoning humanoids, it's about building physically intelligent bodies that offload work to materials and mechanisms. So you got to think about basically skin and organs, parts inside of a robot that would have their own kind of intelligence. They would maybe be intelligent to humidity or the way tendons could for pressure, or they could return energy with like a spring-like force. And that's really the difference between these sort of solid, kind of complicated robots and what might be coming down the road to have intelligent bodies. So remember that the body itself is kind of like a computer. Those joints, skins, and structure are all quite smarter than we would think. And it's not just the brain directing around the body. Like the body itself has its kind of own intelligence. Let's talk about Salvatore Rail's article, Lie to Win, When Competition Makes AI Deceptive, the inside race to the bottom, or inside the race to the bottom, why competitive pressures push AI towards deception. So I thought this would be interesting to talk about because you have to remember, usually when we're talking about is AI going to be aligned and how's alignment going to work, we're thinking, all right, what are the government policies in place? We're thinking, who are the people in charge and how much do we trust them? But this article, Lie to Win, is really exploring how competitive market pressures can push AI systems around. So especially with large language models, they tend to behave deceptively, not out of somebody who is kind of evil and sitting there thinking, I'm going to deceive everyone and I'm going to build this AI to control everything, but companies are just optimizing these systems to maximize engagement, sales, persuasion, and that unintentionally trains the AI to prioritize effectiveness over the truth, right? And there's just such a slippery slope when you're rewarding manipulation or misleading behavior to achieve a short-term goal. You might be thinking, oh, I just, want to sell some headphones on social media. You buy some headphones and you try to resell them for 10% more than you bought them for. And to do that, the system itself does something intelligent and you're just happy, right? Like you made your 10% profits or whatever. What was happening with the campaign statements, with the reinforcement learning, with the success metric that the AI is being trained to optimize, basically deception, right? Like it's coming along for the ride, whether we like it or not. So this piece warns that as AI becomes more integrated into communication, into politics, into commerce, into optimization for success, that loop can degrade trust and alignment becomes harder and harder. So remember, deception can emerge not from malice, but also from math. So if you find content like this engaging, make sure to go down to the YouTube app, swipe right on the comment section, and you should see a hype button. That hype button helps channels like mine so much. You can only do it if the video has been posted in the last, I think, 5 days or maybe 7 days. And if the channel's small enough, but mine is. So if you see that hype button, that can help me be on the hype leaderboard, helps me get seen, kind of stand out amongst the smaller channels, and I would super appreciate it. Other than that, any comments, likes, I'm all ears. I have a Patreon if you want to check that out. And thank you for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.